Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wa bihi nasta'in. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin, amma ba'd. Respected Mrs. Chairperson, Honorable Yang Berhormat Tuan Cikgu Mohd Azmi, Member of Parliament and former Minister of Defence Malaysia, Brother Engineer Ahmad Jamaluddin Samsudin, the CEO of the Allied Coordinating Committee of Islamic NGOs, respected dignitaries from embassies, Member of Parliaments, representatives of political parties, members of MAPIM's NGO affiliates, members of the press, brothers and sisters. 74 years ago, on Friday, Indian forces landed on the Himalayan region, sparking decades of deadly violence. Indian Army landed in the Himalayan valley of Kashmir, giving rise to one of the world's deadliest disputes. Every year, the people in this divided region mark October 27th as a Black Day to protest the decades-old Indian military occupation. If you go to any home in Jammu Kashmir now, and you will hear the story of how families have lost their brothers or their sons or their husbands killed, and how they continue to face the atrocities of the occupation by India. You will be shocked of the sufferings that they have to endure. They continue to live the repercussions of the day that gave birth to this conflict. We know that this record of the history, Maharaja Hari Singh, who was ruling Kashmir at that time, there was a revolt against him, and he requested assistance from India. And there was an agreement after the situation calmed down. There should be then resumption of the status of Kashmir, but that didn't happen. The vote that was supposed to be taken 74 years of making Kashmir an unsolved legacy of partition. Resistance groups have been fighting since 1989 for the Indian-occupied Jammu Kashmir to become independent. Since the nearly 70,000 people have been killed in the uprising and the ensuing Indian military crackdown. India maintains roughly almost 500,000. Somebody was saying that it's almost 1 million soldiers in the Muslim majority territory. Indian forces have sexually assaulted and gang raped more than 11,000, has been shown in the documentary. Indian forces' aggression and violence in the illegal occupied Jammu and Kashmir region has left close to 23,000 women widowed. The Kashmir Media Service, KMS, said in its report, published in light of the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. The 2,342 women victims were among the 95,723 civilians martyred by India, soldiers in total. The Indian forces used harassment, molestation as a weapon of war to not only suppress Kashmir's liberation struggle, but to deter activists and leaders from their campaigns, using fear that the women they love would be subjected to sexual abuse. The KMS, the Kashmir Media Service, citing a report by the research section of Kashmir Media Service, said Indian troops molested 11,224 women during the period, noting that Kashmiri women have been the worst victims of the horrifying conflict, which rendered 22,923 women widowed since 1989. The report cited also underscored how Indian troops routinely engage in sexually harassing Kashmiri women to suppress the ongoing liberation struggle. Moreover, over 100,000 were suffering from mental health issues due to the violence perpetrated by Indian police and troops, and the publication that was said in the publication. According to another report, the Kashmir leaders have consistently demanded impartial probes into the cases of rape, murder, and other human rights violations against women, including the Kunan Pashpora mass rape and the Sofian tragedy. Over 100 women were gang raped. Over 100 women were gang raped by Indian troops at Kunan Paspora in Kupwara in February 1991, while 2 women, Aisia and Nifola, were abducted, raped, and subsequently killed by Indian men in uniform in Sofian in May 2009. A 9-year-old Asifa Bano was abducted, gang raped by Indian police personnel and fanatics affiliated with extremist Hindu organization in Katwa area of Jammu region in January 2018. According to Muhammad Ashraf Wani, a professor of history, and said October 27, 1947 changed the history, geography, and culture of Kashmir as the borders were sealed that connected the region to Central Asia, which was an important trade partner. The Kashmir conflict continues to be the same as it was 74 years ago. There is no change in it. There have been atrocities on the people on daily basis. The conflict has disconnected Kashmir with its parts. The Kashmiris suffered heavily since that dark day. Then they continue to suffer immensely. The partition had enduring effects on them. They have been crying for help, and all those who love humanity and should have come forward to solve this dispute, because this is the longest pending dispute in the world. Khalid Bashir, a Kashmiri author of Kashmir Exposing the Myth Behind the Narrative, said even after wars and violation of human rights, a solution has yet to be found in Kashmir. The conflict gave rise to armed struggle, death, and destruction, but still, there has been no seriousness on the part of the international community in solving the issue. The conflict has resulted in thousands of struggling orphans, half-widows, rape victims, victims blinded by pellet guns, injured, arbitrary arrest, torture, and bloodshed, which continues until this very moment as we speak. The civilian Kashmiris are under constant threat. The world community has not learned the bitterness of the Black Day. After 74 years, it had not taught the lesson that bloodshed is going to last unless and until serious efforts are made to end it. As Shahid Said Ali Shah Gilani, who gave his life for the cause, called for Kashmiris to be resolute to their struggle for freedom. The Indian occupiers even had to fear the deceased, and imposed a law not allowing gathering for Kashmiris to pay their last respect to him. He had always maintained that India had forcibly seized Kashmir in 1947. And so are the list of Mujahideens incarcerated, in captivity and tortured, namely the renowned Hurriyat Yasin Malik, as you know, the wife was speaking just now, who is lingering in the custody of the draconian law of India, and he is yet to be released. With abundance of testimonies and evidences of victims by the occupation of Jammu and Kashmir, should the world sit back in silence? What is then the meaning of having a United Nations Assembly to continue its rhetorics and statement but absent in concrete action? It becomes a disunited nation. What relevance do all the resolutions and declarations on human rights and international law are repeatedly pronounced, and yet a clear occupation is being executed with no capacity for the UN, United Nations, to act? What is the purpose of having protocols and conventions on genocide, apartheid, violations of international law, when an occupation still continues with impunity in Kashmir? 74 years back on this day, India, without any constitutional and moral justification, forcibly took control of Jammu and Kashmir, and since then, Indian forces are mercilessly killing innocent and unarmed Kashmiris, vandalizing their properties and indulging in myriad of inhuman crimes. Kashmiris have been exposing their lives in protest against the illegal occupation. Indian occupation forces have been unleashing atrocities and cruelties upon Kashmiri nation to suppress the peaceful voices. In light of this pathetic situation, MAPIM decided to initiate the uphill task of taking the Kashmir cause to Malaysia and to the world. It is indeed not only on the grounds of human dignity and justice, but more so the moral obligation of Muslim brotherhood as an ummah, that each and every one of us today will be answerable and accountable for our deeds that we do and the deeds that we are supposed to do but we have ignored, of which is the plight of the oppressed Kashmiri brothers and sisters. MAPIM have established a few platforms for the Kashmir cause, including Malaysian Kashmir Youth Movement, the Malaysian Women for Kashmir, the ASEAN People's Advocacy Group for Kashmir. I'm also proud of our respected Member of Parliament, YB Dato' Hasanuddin Muhammad Yunus, who has initiated the Friends of Kashmir amongst the politicians in our lower house, in our parliament. I thank YB Muhammad Sabu, the former Minister of Defence, and Brother Engineer Jamaluddin Samsudin, the CEO of ASIN, to join us in this commemoration of a painful history, but indeed also an inspiration to join hand in jihad with our Kashmiri Ummah for freedom and for justice. I particularly invited our friend from Palestine, Brother Dr. Sharif. Thank you for joining us. I'm just trying to express, brother, if you have the Nakba for Palestine, you have the Nakba for Kashmiris. If you have a Shabra Shatila for Palestinians, we have Kunan Paspora for Kashmiris. The list can go on.
Chico,
yes.
If we end the occupation in Palestine, all problems of the world will be solved.
Inshallah. We'll
the head of the evil is the Zionism.
Yes, Dr. Sharif. We have to join forces in all fronts. So that is why I think your presence here is for us to feel the pains of Palestinians in Kashmir as one of the situations that we cannot allow it to go on. I express my deepest gratitude to all our dignitaries for your presence and support. I cannot but extend my appreciation to all parties that have worked hard and gave their sacrifices to show our solidarity with Kashmir. MAPIM and Shura are indeed grateful to everyone, the Secretariat and our friends among the NGOs and the media, both national and international. Thank you so much. The book will be launched by the Young Bormat, but this is a small contribution on a little effort from myself and the friends. I hope this will make an impact to our campaign to save and free Kashmir. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.